by the beginning of February, but debatable. You know how governments work.
Right?
Well, it'll be good, I can come and spill my tea on the floor there without making a mess.
Have you done that before?
I did, and then I tried to wipe it up, which was the bad idea. You're supposed to soak it up with a dry rag, because the floor doesn't have a finish on it or something. Or
Yeah,
it's-
that floor is 30, I think it's 32 years old.
Oh, it's as old as me.
And it's never, ever had anything done to it.
And that's what people.
Sorry, I
Wow.
didn't mean to laugh, I
That's
didn't mean to
on it.
laugh at
That's
that
on it all the
joke,
time.
sorry.
Wow.
There's no wax
That's
put
good.
on it, but that's.
cameras are on.
But it's in good shape,
So am I.
except that some people didn't spill things on the floor.
Just on fire.
Get it together. You're on camera.
Yes, Not early today, and I get it after.
Hit it.
Apparently that's wrong too.
Pretty quick.
Right on.
Call this meeting to order, regular meeting of council, Town of Oliver, October 28th, 2019, and I'll ask the CAO if there's any late items to add to the agenda.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have no items to include on this agenda.
Thank you. Look for a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated. Councilor Grace, Councilor Mattis, all questions, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. Adoption of prior minutes. Adoption of prior minutes, item 1, adoption of August 4th, 2019, special open meeting minutes. Getting a motion to adopt those minutes. Councilor Veintimilla, Councilor Grace, call the question. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, adoption of October 15th, 2019, regular open council meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to adopt those minutes? Councilor Grace, seconded by Councilor Veintimilla. All the questions, those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to committee reports. Item 1, October 7th, 2019, Downtown Advisory Committee meeting minutes for receipt. Can I get a motion to receive those minutes? Councilor Schwartzberger, seconded by Councilor Rice. Call the question, those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, October 15th, 2019, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for receipt. Can I get a motion to receive those? Councilor Rice, seconded Councilor Veintimilla. Call the question. Favor, opposed, motion carries. And now we have item 3, a verbal report from Chairperson Veintimilla of the Committee of the Whole meeting earlier this evening.
Thank you. So we were joined by Director Knodel and many others this afternoon, but Director Knodel participated in our conversations. We had a couple of budget presentations, one from the Oliver Tourism Association. We had Carol Sheridan and Danielle Hutton present. Talked about the visitor center coordinator, their hopes to hire a tourism manager, and quite a good discussion and back and forth about the proposed application for an MRDT, which is the municipal rural. I don't know why I started to say what it was, because I didn't know. Destination tax, the hotel tax. And then we had the Oliver and District Heritage Society present as well. We had Juliana Weisgerber and Vance Potter as the president. Some of the interesting things that they mentioned is that the society is responsible for 4 buildings plus some off-site storage. They have over 15,000 documented objects and records under their care, as well as many that are not documented as of yet. And in the past 4 years, they've applied for and received over $348,000 in grants. So those were all some interesting numbers to add to their budget presentation. And we also went over our 2020 council appointments list. And that was our meeting, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Councilor Veintimilla. Moving to water matters. One thing on here is a report from Councilor Machial.
Very, very busy, Your Worship, and nothing to do with council.
Okay. Moving to bylaws, item 1, official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 1370.02 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 1380.1, vacation rentals. This is for first and second reading. Director of Development Services report is attached. I'll refer to the CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will pass this over to our Director of Development Services to present the updated zoning and OCP bylaw amendments.
Thank you, Your Worship. The subject of this report is vacation rentals, so the zoning and OCP bylaw amendments, as well as bed and breakfast and home occupation amendments. So at the August 26, 2019 council meeting, staff presented a summary of the vacation rental survey results along with policy suggestions moving forward. Feedback from the residents was mixed, with policy suggestions made around limiting the rentals to owners that have a principal residence on site. At the October 15, 2019 council meeting, staff introduced zoning and OCP amendment bylaws associated with permitting vacation rentals, as well as amendments to bed and breakfast operations and home occupation guidelines. The bylaws were referred back to staff to make changes to allow signage on site and not restrict the age of the additional children that are permitted per rental. The town has taken this initiative to permit vacation rentals to ensure health and safety measures are met and guidelines are put in place aimed at reducing negative impacts on the surrounding neighborhood. The proposed OCP amendments are amending 8.3.4 of the low-density residential policies to include vacation rentals as an allowable use along with home occupations and bed and breakfast operations. It'd be also adding section 12.2.8F to the agriculture and food systems policies to list vacation rentals as a permitted use along with bed and breakfast operations and home occupations. The proposed zones that staff have identified are the residential zones, so RS1, 2, 3, 4, and RD1. And the rural zones are the agriculture zone and the agriculture transition zone. The new guidelines, 6.13.1, a vacation rental shall not be operated without a valid business license by the town of Oliver, which shall be displayed in a prominent location on the parcel in question. And 6.13.2, so in a low-density residential or rural zone, the following provisions shall apply. It shall be only permitted within a single detached dwelling, legal secondary suite, carriage home, or duplex unit. It shall only be operated by the owner of the parcel in question. It shall only be operated by a person who has a principal residence on the parcel in question. A maximum of 1 vacation rental is permitted per parcel. In the case of a duplex, only 1 duplex unit, or only 1 dwelling unit rather, should be permitted to be used as a vacation rental. A vacation rental shall not be permitted on the same parcel as a bed and breakfast operation. A maximum of 2 adults and 2 children per bedroom are permitted per vacation rental, and the holder of a vacation rental license shall keep a written record of the names of everyone that's staying there. The other amendments to the zoning bylaw are the bed and breakfast operation amendments, so adding the following to section 6.12 bed and breakfast operation general regulations. So 6.12.7, a bed and breakfast operation shall not be permitted on the same parcel as a vacation rental. And section 6.12.8, the holder of a bed and breakfast operation license shall keep a written name of the names of all tenants. And then the other change is amending the parking. So instead of 1 space per 4 guest suites, it's 0.5 spaces per bedroom. And the last change is to the home occupation amendments. So that's limiting the number of home occupations permitted per parcel to 1, and removing the reference to a home workshop being a permitted home occupation. This is because the guidelines for home occupations specifically state that manufactured and industrial uses are not permitted, and the definition of manufacturing includes fabricating, processing, assembling, and finishing of goods or materials, which is consistent with what a home workshop would be. So there's 3 options for council: that they support the staff recommendation, that they support the staff recommendation with conditions, or they refer it back to staff. And with that, the staff recommendation is that OCP Amendment Bylaw 1370.02 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 1380.10 be read a first and second time and proceed to the public hearing on November 12th, and that staff give notice of the public hearing in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act. Thank you.
Any questions, Councillor? Councillor Matt?
I know there was some discussion by council at the last meeting, which I was unable to attend, but maybe I can get filled in on some of the things. One of the questions I had was regarding the maximum of 2 adults and 2 children per bedroom are permitted per vacation rental. but there was no age put on what the children would be, and I understand the council had some discussion around that. My question there would be, so it would be possible, the way that it's written now, for someone with 40-year-old children to have 4 adults.
CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. It would be looked at as what a reasonable person consider a child.
I just thought it might make sense to put an age limit on it of 18, which is what people consider. I
There-
don't know. We're just throwing that out.
I remember that discussion, but I don't remember where the discussion came from, but I remember there was age of 12 there or something at one point. 7, was it 7?
Yeah, so the report was presented to us last meeting with 2 children under the age of 7, which we felt was, well, personally I felt was a strange age. So then we had the discussion about what's the age, do we need an age? And the consensus that we reached at the time was that we didn't need to even put an age at all. It was 2 adults plus 2 children, and the age of the children would be left up to the discretion of the owners. We did not talk about 2 adults bringing 2 40-year-old children. That did not enter the conversation at all.
Quit looking at me, Dave.
Which is fine, I just thought I would, throw that out as a possibility of what you could end up with, not that. The second item was the holder of the vacation rental, keep a written record of the names. Should there not be more contact information there? Not just names, but possibly addresses? I'm not sure that it serves any purpose to keep someone's name.
Victor Bellman?
Thank you, Your Worship. That was brought forward from, there were provisions before in the business license bylaw for vacation rentals, so that was brought forward. I think the idea is just making sure that they're accountable and that they have a list of who's staying there, so that if staff ever had concerns with the number of people that are staying there, they could ask them to provide this list. But staff don't see a reason to ask for their addresses. It would just be, it's more just to see the number of people staying there.
CJ?
There should be consideration taken to the privacy issue, that if we start collecting information that we really don't require, we have to protect it, and we have to put steps in place to ensure that it doesn't get released in any way once we start collecting that kind of information.
I think the main reason for doing it was just the number of people that were staying there, more than just a record of, is there 3 people, 4 people, those type of things. Anything else, Councillor?
The last question would be around the bed and breakfast. I noticed a change in the definition. When I compare bed and breakfast to the other one, I don't see anything in a bed and breakfast that says that the owners need to be on site. Where it says that for vacation rentals, that the owners have to be there. When I look under definitions and I know that, I think it was deleted from there. Bed and breakfast operation means the use of bedrooms in a principal dwelling unit which provides sleeping accommodations to the traveling public and includes the provision of a morning meal for the persons using the sleeping accommodations. This does not include vacation rental. And adding a few other sections, but it doesn't say anything in this amendment bylaw regarding go ahead if you can answer the question.
Director Bellman?
Thank you, Your Worship. In the actual guidelines, the existing guidelines, because we are just adding 2 sections to the bed and breakfast operations, but in the existing guidelines it says under 6.12.5, only persons residing in the principal dwelling unit may carry out the bed and breakfast operation on the parcel occupied by the principal dwelling unit and must be present on the property during the patron's stay. So the amendment is just simplifying the definition and rather, I guess, just giving a definition rather than stating that they must be present, since it already says that in the actual guidelines.
Okay. I guess the concern then would be that as you just read it, that in the vacation rental, you have to be the owner and you have to be residing on the property. But what you just read there, it says that the resident of the property, it doesn't say the owner of the property. So it's two different standards. One standard says you have to be the owner on site, the other one says you just have to be the resident in order to run the bed and breakfast. You don't have to be the owner of the property. I think we should have the same standard for both.
Thank you, Worship. I think the main reason for that is a bed and breakfast are bedrooms in a house. So the idea is you're within someone's house, right? So whether that's the owner or someone renting it, I mean, it's probably not the end of the world, but if with a vacation rental unit, it could be a full dwelling unit. So it could be a carriage house in the back, or it could be, you know, we want to make sure the person's there on site. So I don't know, it's a difficult one, I guess.
Councillor Veintimilla.
Would you be able to read that description again that you just read?
For bed and breakfast operation.
Which is in the main.
Yeah, in section 6.1, 2.5, only persons residing in the principal dwelling unit may carry on the bed and breakfast operation on the parcel occupied by the principal dwelling unit and must be present on the property during a patient's stay.
So
Councillor Veintimilla.
I guess then I agree with what you just said, so that's a conversation then that we should have whether we want that changed as well, or not, now or later.
Councillor Schwarzenberg.
Thank you, Worship. My thinking is that, you know, if the person is renting out their house as a landlord and the renter is offering bed and breakfast services, then that would be something that the owner theoretically would know about and would have agreed to when he rented the property to the tenant, that the tenant was going to, as well as live there, operate a B&B out of it. So I think it's, my thinking it would be okay not to have to specify that a principal resident has to be there.
But we're giving that opportunity to those people, but not to tenants of any other houses. You have to be the owner in order to run a vacation rental. Why would we not give the same opportunity to people that are renting houses that have the agreement of the landlord to have vacation rentals? We're not allowing it. I'm just saying it should be consistent.
Well,
If
I
you're
think,
gonna give a business opportunity to one, you should give it to the other,
well,
or take it away from both.
I think in this case, the difference with a vacation rental is that the tenant is living in the house, or living in the house, there's another suite there. He's not, theoretically, he's not renting both of them, he's only renting one of them. So the other one is either rented to somebody else, because a vacation rental has to be a whole self-contained unit with a kitchen in it. So if you're renting a house and there's a secondary suite, in theory, it would be rented out to somebody else. And you're not, the person who's renting the main residence is not renting both residences. I suppose that could happen theoretically, that you would rent the entire building and then you could sublet the other part, or vacation rental the other part. Maybe it's a good point that just make it the same for both, that principal residents have to apply. I just talked myself back into it.
Director.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I mean, council could decide to add another section. So in this case, it'd be 6.12.9 that states, which is similar to the vacation rental guidelines, that a bed and breakfast operation shall only be operated by the owner of the parcel in question, if that's something that they wish to do.
I think that's fine.
Make them both the same. That's basically, I think, what we're saying.
Councillor Veintimilla.
So you talked yourself into it, and now I'm thinking through and potentially talking myself out of it. I guess I just wonder, I agree that it makes sense to keep them consistent and to provide the same opportunity, whether it's bed and breakfast or whether it's a vacation rental. But I just wonder if adding more regulations on top of issue with bed and breakfast in the past? Is that extra layer needed if it's working well the way that it is right now?
I would say it depends on the owner and the tenant. I mean, we've all read these horror stories in Vancouver and Kelowna about people renting out every bedroom in the house and they don't even live there, and you know, so because we haven't had a problem in the past doesn't mean we won't have one in the future.
Councillor Grace?
Thank you, Worship. I guess the difference I see is with the bed and breakfast, somebody's in the house, so it feels like it's just less of a situation of it's getting way on you. I don't know really which side of the fence I'm on with this one. But I just want to ask through to the CAO, do we know if any of the B&Bs that are currently being operated, or are they all being operated by the principal owners, or are there any renters that we know of that are?
Unfortunately, I can't answer that question for you at this point in time, because there's a number of applications or business licenses out there. And I think they have to indicate whether they're the owner of the property or not when they're asking for the business license. And I'm not sure if they need to have permission or not from the property owner to carry on that business if it's not the property owner itself. So we can look into that and I can provide that to you. But at this point in time, I can't.
I don't have a problem either way, I just think it should be consistent for both. Should be the same for both. Whether the owner has to be there or not be there, doesn't matter to me. But it should be the same for both.
So where are we at right now with the bylaw that's before us for first and second reading? We have on a vacation rental, we're asking the principal, the owner, to be on
There's that one section,
on the site.
Yeah.
And with the bed and breakfast, we're not doing that, so somebody that's renting a house could operate a bed and breakfast out of that house. Is that correct?
Thank you, Worship. I should clarify that with the vacation rental, we're not stating that they have to be on site at the time of rental. We're just saying it has to be their principal residence. So a property owner could decide to leave for 2 weeks in the summer and rent their house out as long as it's their principal residence. With the bed and breakfast, those are existing guidelines that said that they had to be there at the time of the stay. The idea is you are there, it's just in your house, right? So if you want, council could decide that we could remove that requirement that they must be there at the time of rental, but that's up to you.
I'm still struggling with what we're trying to achieve here, just to make sure I wrap my head around it. So vacation rental, we're saying the owner, registered owner of the property has to be living there.
Yeah, they have to have a residence on site. So whether they live in the carriage house and they want to use their principal house to rent out for vacation rentals, or they have the principal residence and they want to use their suite for a vacation rental, the idea is they have to have a principal residence on site.
No, that's
Yeah.
fine, the registered property owner.
And they have to be the property owner, yep.
So, but we're saying in this that a bed and breakfast doesn't have to be the registered property owner. Is that correct here? Is that where?
That's how it reads.
the
That's
point.
how it
Yeah, we
reads.
haven't,
That's how it reads
staff,
right now.
yeah, staff haven't added that provision. Like I said, there's an existing provision that states that people residing in the principal dwelling unit, that they must be there.
So there's kind of two issues here. One of them is, do we want only registered property owners to run these types of businesses out of their properties? That's the first question. And then are you fine with either one being run by a registered property or one being run by a renter? I guess there's kind of 2 points there.
Well, we're saying choices are, you could have one run by a renter and one not. You could have them both run by a renter, or you could have them both run by the owner. There's 3 choices. And all I was suggesting is there should be consistency for both. Either you should have them both available to be run by a renter, or have them both available to be, that they must be run by the owner, but they should be the same. That's all I'm suggesting.
Mm-hmm.
Just based on this discussion, that's why I recommended adding adding that a bed and breakfast operation shall only be operated by the owner of the parcel in question. I think that would sort of sum up with what you're discussing.
Yeah, I'm kind of jumping in here, but I kind of feel the same way. The registered owner of the property is gonna have more control and more care and due diligence on their piece of property and running a business that where other people are coming and going. I would be a little nervous, I think, to have a renter conducting that type of business, and the owner just, you know, who knows where the owner is. I guess I would prefer it to be the registered owner on both situations.
I'm fine with either one, but it should be the same.
Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm still kind of waffling on this one, cause I still see the difference being if somebody in the house, so if I'm renting my home to someone that wants to run a business out of it, but they're in there, I think that's where that kind of control over, you know, behaviors that neighbors aren't gonna like or whatever happens.
It is, I'll jump in and say it is possible to have a vacation rental and rent out only a portion of your house. You can be living in a portion of the house and rent out a portion of the house as a vacation rental, and then the only difference is you're not offering breakfast. It's the only difference.
Councillor Veintimilla.
Well, and if, as far as that's concerned, then we've gone to, I don't wanna say great lengths, but we've made a point of saying that we are going in with owner-occupied vacation rentals as opposed to just vacation rentals. So, along the same lines of Councillor Grice, I can see why there might be two sets of rules for the two different types of operations, because they are different. And to my earlier point, yes, issues may arise, but have we had any? But that being said, if we're gonna try and make them the same, if that's the decision we make, then I believe we should be leaning towards owner occupied, because we've made a point of saying that that's important to us up until now.
I agree.
If that's the case, then if it's necessary, I will make a motion that the
It's
bylaw.
right up there.
It's already up there, that the bylaw be amended.
Well,
That bylaw be amended to add section 612.9. The bed and breakfast shall only be operated by the owner who has principal residence on the parcel in question.
we have to put that in for any meeting, yeah.
And it'll have to be as amended.
I'll second that.
So just to clarify, what does that give us? That amendment give us? We're asking for the
Owner.
registered owner on,
They're the only ones that can operate these.
is that's what this amendment is doing?
Yes,
So not a renter?
not a renter. Just like a vacation.
Councillor Grace?
Thank you, Your Worship. So through to, Director of Development Services, so hypothetically speaking, if I was renting a home and I wanted to have a B&B with this, could my landlord, like the owner, allow me to do that somehow, like, the owner of the home would have the business license, but I can still operate it as the renter? Like, is there still a way that, because I think, and which to me would be fine, because that's still making sure that the owner of the residence knows what's going on, but, you know, if a renter really wanted to have a B&B and the owner was okay with it, that can still kinda happen. Not that I'm trying to find ways.
No, I guess they could because ultimately, to be a principal residence, you have to live there for 6 months. So say you were a snowbird and you went away for the summer or for the winter, and then the tenants that were in there wanted to do a B&B. I mean, this provision would allow for that. But that's not the issue. I mean, ultimately the issue is it being commercialized, right? And people not being your principal residence. So I think this provision is fine.
So the motion was for the amendment at this point,
To add the amendment.
to add the amendment or the change.
Is that correct?
So you want just that
That's
first
all that was
piece?
on the motion.
Okay, so take out the end and just bring it down.
Can we still do first and second reading?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, but gotta do the amendment first.
And I have some questions.
Cause there may be more, and then that's your discussion.
You want to ask a question after we vote on it?
Yeah, no, just rest.
So we need to vote on the amendment?
Well, it's a motion that's been put up, or
And
it's been moved at first, I don't know if
It's
someone
been
said.
seconded.
Moved and
Yeah.
seconded.
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded.
The motion as amended has been moved and seconded?
No.
Not the whole
Adding the
thing,
amendment.
just that one to include that section.
Just the amendment.
Is there more?
Adding the amendment to the main body.
Any more discussion on the amendment before I call the question? Question, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Any more discussion, questions on the proposed motion? Councillor Veintimilla.
Just a question, so one of the comments that came up from our last discussion a couple of weeks ago, one was about removing the age of the children, and thinking about it, I think personally I'd still be okay with leaving, I'm totally comfortable with leaving the age of the children off, even given the chance for hypothetical 40-year-old children to show up. We'll see how it goes. But just wondering if you could let us know where you landed on the signage portion of that last request.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, so we removed the provision says that they can't have signage, right? So council is pursuing that they are allowed to have signage. And right now, the sign would fall under the home occupation in the sign bylaw, which allows one wall or window sign up to 0.6 meters squared in area. I know we talked about 1 meter squared, but it's actually 0.6 meters squared in the sign bylaw. Or a freestanding sign up to 0.6 meters squared with a maximum height of 1.5 meters. Ultimately, in the next few months, it would be a good idea to bring the sign bylaw for amendment to state that, to add provisions for bed and breakfast operations and vacation rentals. But right now, we could go under the guidelines of the home occupations. If someone wanted to come in for a sign, well, they would be exempt from a sign permit, but, yeah. So it would be a good idea to bring forward amendments to the sign bylaw to clean that up.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Before we-
I'll move the proposed motion.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Rice. Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Moving to item 2, zoning bylaw amendment 1380.11, 312 Chardonnay Avenue for first and second reading. Director of Development Services report attached, refer to the CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll have the Director of Development Services go through the application with you and provide you an overview of the proposed changes.
Thank you, Worship. This application is for a zoning amendment bylaw number 1380.11 for 312 Chardonnay Avenue. This application is seeking to amend the zoning of 312 Chardonnay Avenue, legally known as Lot 5, District Lot 2450S, SDYD Plan KAP 79057, from RH1, which is Residential High Density 1, to RS4, which is Residential Low Density 4, to facilitate a 3-lot subdivision in which a single-family dwelling will be constructed on each lot. The property location map is on the screen here, and it's in the Tuckalnuit area on the north side. So photos of the subject property. The picture on the left is the south elevation from Chardonnay Avenue, and the picture on the right is the south elevation looking along the east property line. Again, the southwest elevation and the west elevation. And the picture on the left is the west elevation again, and then the picture on the right is the west elevation looking along the north property line. So as mentioned, the zoning currently is RH1, which is residential high density 1. And the OCP designation is LR, low density residential. The applicant is proposing to rezone the subject property from RH1 to RS4 to facilitate a 3-lot subdivision in which a single family dwelling will be constructed on each lot. Since the proposed use and minimum lot sizes do not meet the requirements in the RH1 zone, a rezoning to RS4 is required. Before you on the screen here is the preliminary subdivision plan. So it'd be 3 lots from north to south. These 2 lots, proposed lot A and B, will be accessed off of Meadows Drive, and then proposed lot C will be accessed in the southeast corner here off of Chardonnay Avenue. And with that, there will be a few boulevard trees that will have to move. The developer will be responsible. They are young trees that haven't really seemed to thrive yet, and they're reasonably, believe they're at least 8 to 10 years old and they haven't really grown. So the idea is the developer would be responsible to pay to relocate those if they do need to put a driveway in where the trees are. We've gone back and forth a little bit, but at this point it's pretty preliminary on their house design, so they're not sure, but they are saying that they're likely that one of the trees will have to move, or 2 of them. And here's the preliminary site plan. So as you can see up here, this tree may need to be relocated. Sorry, whether that's to this end here. There is a fire hydrant here, so we're not sure yet. And then the one down on this end is pretty tight to this driveway as well, so that one may need to move. And then there are some preliminary elevations that they've come up with for lot C. So you can see there are 1-story building. The ones on lot A and B, they've discussed that they may be 2-story buildings, but the one on lot C is 1-story. So the OCP designation, the subject property was previously designated as Tuckalnuit Mixed Residential under OCP 1070 in 2003, which allowed a mix of low and medium density residential housing. In March of 2017, OCP Bylaw 1370 was adopted, which changed the designation of this property to LR, low density residential. This designation supports the construction of single family dwellings, duplexes, secondary suites, and carriage homes, which is aligned with the current proposal. So there are 3 options for council: that they may choose to support the staff recommendation, they may choose not to support the staff recommendation, or they may refer back to staff for additional information. And with that, the staff recommendation is that Zoning Amendment Bylaw 138011 be read a first and second time and proceed to a public hearing, and that the holding of the public hearing be held on November 12th, and that staff give notice of the public hearing in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act. Thank you.
Comments, questions, council? Councillor Veintimilla. My only question was just going to be on the size of lots to the north, I guess, and to the east. Are they similar in width? Are they fairly similar in size? Like, my concern is that these 3 lots are going to stand out as very small lots compared to the other lots in that they're butting up or adjacent to.
I mean, they're similar in size. They are bigger though, obviously. But ultimately, if you went with 2 lots here, then they would be bigger than the other ones. So it's kind of, yeah. I mean, it's adding density. I mean, right now the zoning is for multifamily. So if you are going to rezone it, it's a good idea to rezone it to a zone that would allow you to get 3 single-family dwellings on it to achieve that density.
Councillor Veintimilla.
So if one of the slides that was up there earlier shows the medium density on 4 corners in that sort of subdivision area, and I wasn't here at the time, but I remember that there has been some conversation over the past couple of years anyway about the mixed use of that area being a requirement from the ALC at the time that it was removed, the land was removed from the reserve. So they were intentionally put there those higher density lots, and I'm just wondering if that's no longer a requirement, or if we passed the time, or it's just not a concern anymore.
Thank you, Your Worship. During the OCP review, we did go through and look at what was the land available and how we could ensure that we had enough land mass with respect to the population growth that was expected over the next little while. And it was determined that we did have enough multi and single family dwellings, and in that area it was put down to low residential in the OCP, which went through public consultation, and the ALC also had the opportunity to comment on it, and there was no concern with regards to those pieces being changed to the lower density in the OCP.
Okay. So if the ALC's had a chance to comment, then that's the answer.
Councillor Madison.
Just comments around the history of the properties. The original zoning came about as a result of the ALC when that whole area was released from the agricultural land for residential. The ALC at the time said that there had to be a provision for higher density, which these 4 lots were created in order to meet that provision, in order to get the whole area released. At the last council, and I'm not sure if you remember, the previous council actually had a delegation from residents in that area, which was asking council to force a zoning change because they did not want 6 plexes. So it will be interesting to see at a public hearing whether those people come back and say that they're now in favor of what we're doing, or that they would prefer to have the larger lots more in tune with the lots that they have now. Just to put some numbers to that, these lots will be in, the minimum they're allowed is 350 according to the report. They'll be in the 462 range. For the other lots in the area, I don't know what size they are, but their minimum is 555. Okay, so they're not, these ones are smaller, but they're not that far off. They're about 25% smaller if the other lots are at the minimum. If the other lots are greater than the minimum, then they become that much smaller still. But I think the residents will prefer this over 6 plexes, which is what they figured.
And it's still, looking at the house plans, it's still a pretty sizable floor plan.
The math I did showed you could put about a 2,500 square foot house and still meet all the setbacks.
Councillor Schwarzenberger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the Director of Development Services, that was my question, is I know these are preliminary drawings of what's going on each lot, but they don't require any setback changes or changes to the overall coverage of the lot. Thank you.
I would also point out that the minimum widths and depths do meet the same criteria as is required for an RS1 zone, which is also a good thing. So on that basis, I would move the recommendation.
Do I have a second? Councillor Schwarzenberger. Any further questions, discussion? Call the question, those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item 3, fees and charges bylaw 1383, rescind 3rd reading and read a 3rd time. Corporate officers report attached or refer to the CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll let the corporate officer bring you through the changes that she's brought forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this report is to amend the fees and charges bylaw 1383 that received 3rd reading at the last meeting to accommodate the fees and charges as they're identified in the new safe premises bylaw 1388 that's being brought forward to council a little later in this meeting. So it's important to make that change and correction before we get 3rd reading brought before council. Rescinding 3rd reading and reading a 3rd time as amended will allow for the update of Schedule 10, which was the controlled substance fees, to Schedule 10 safe premises fees. The amendments have been highlighted on the bylaw for your ease of identification. And also getting 3rd reading this evening will allow the bylaws to be adopted with the new safe premises bylaw and the zoning bylaw when it's brought forward at the next meeting. So on Schedule 10, the safe premises fees, if we scroll to, I can go to my annotations. We learned something new today. Oops, there we go. So on your page 24, I've changed the name of Schedule 10 from controlled substances to safe premises. And under 2.0 cleanup, I've changed the identification of the type of facility to an unauthorized drug production facility from grow operation, and the same in 3.0 fire department call out. And 4.0 public works repair, again, unauthorized drug production facility from controlled substance property. So the recommendations before council are to support the recommendation, refer back to staff for additional information, or not to support the recommendation. And the recommendation to council is that council rescind third reading of fees and charges bylaw 1383 and reread third time as amended, and that adoption of the fees and charges bylaw 1383 be scheduled to the November 12, 2019 regular meeting.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Can I get a mover? Councillor Veintimilla, seconded by Councillor Rice. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, bylaw 1386, permissive tax exemption for adoption. Refer to the CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. This bylaw is before council for adoption. It's the permissive tax exemption bylaw. It has been advertised in the paper for the 2 times that it's required to give notice on it, and it is for a 1-year period.
Comments, questions? Mover.
Adoption.
Adoption. Councillor Schwarzenberger. Further questions, comments? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, bylaw 1387, business license for adoption. CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is, I'm not sure which person did this, but, oh, I'm gonna pass it over to the Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. With this amendment, staff identified that several changes can be made through the repeal and replacing of the existing business license bylaw, and this is to make sure that there's consistency with the zoning bylaw in terms of the definitions so that they match. Also, the fee schedule will be removed and added to the fees and charges bylaw that was just brought before council. So staff are also recommending that the short-term residential rental license terms and conditions section be removed. This was essentially the guidelines for vacation rentals, and instead those will be added to the zoning amendment, or to the zoning bylaw rather, and it'll be removed from the business license bylaw. And lastly, the business license application forms and license templates in schedules A, B, and C should be removed due to the fact that each time an application form is updated, a bylaw amendment would be required. And those are the changes for the business license bylaw.
Thank you. Questions? Can I get a mover that bylaw 1387 business license be adopted? Councillor Grace, seconder. Councillor Mattis. Further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item 6, bylaw 1388, Town of Oliver safe premises. Refer to the CAO. This is for first 3 readings.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is to introduce the proposed Town of Oliver Safe Premises Bylaw 1388 for consideration by council and outlining the changes recommended to enhance the town's ability to impose requirements respecting health and safety matters on private property. In 2007, we adopted the Controlled Substance Nuisance Bylaw, and that was to deal with controlled substance properties, and it was limited to those properties at that time. As one of the priorities of the CSCPC, which is the Community Safety and Crime Prevention Committee, was to ensure that local governments have the authority to enter properties and enhance our current bylaws. So staff have reviewed the current bylaw and have researched with what other municipalities have adopted for handling nuisance properties beyond illegal grow operations. Throughout, I have proposed changes with respect to, well, the citation. We're changing it to safe premises bylaw, and that is due to the expanded scope beyond the controlled substances that we want to deal with. And then there's a number of definitions that I have addressed in here. You have read through them. I don't know if you want me to go through each one of them with you, or if if there's any questions with regards to any of them, I can answer those if you'd like. How would you like that?
I would think if any councillor has a specific question. If not, move on.
Okay, because there's a lot of definitions there. So then, under the general, under section part 4, that section's been updated to provide clarification on prohibited things as defined by the new bylaw. Powers of inspectors, fire chief, and building inspectors. This section outlines what powers are provided for entering onto a parcel, including the interior of a building, and this section relates to part 4 of the enforcement section 19 and 20 of the current bylaw. It now provides powers to inspectors, which is not provided in the current bylaw. And I'm just going to go back to inspectors because we did enhance that section by including for inspectors. Sorry, you've got it. So inspectors, we've put in the fire chief, the building inspector, a peace officer. We've included the director of development services. The director of operations was in there, I do believe, and then the deputy of any of those persons. So it has been enhanced from what we currently have. Part 6, it clarifies it's the special safety inspections that have to be undertaken, and it clarifies when a special safety inspection may be undertaken and relates to hazardous conditions, unauthorized drug production facility, and an authorized grow operation when one of those ceases. The current bylaw only speaks to a controlled substance property at this point in time. Discontinuation of the water service. It also provides clarification on discontinuing of the water service for an unauthorized drug production facility. And it also includes provisions for discontinuation of the water service to any parcel if there is a risk of backflow or contamination, which our current bylaw only speaks to illegal grow operations, again, with respect to that. And then the requirements for reoccupancy, it indicates what needs to be undertaken to get back on that parcel, and things that have been identified through this special safety inspection. And again, our current bylaw only speaks to controlled substance properties. It's a theme. The owner's obligation, again, there's been some minor changes from what is currently there, but it provides a timeline required for reporting any contraventions to the town. And then the owner's responsibility in part 10 defines what the owner is responsible for to ensure that the property complies with our bylaws. And it also notifies the owner that any action by the town does not relieve the owner of such responsibility. That's if we were to go in and do something, they would still be responsible for it with respect to paying for it. The offenses and penalties, that includes being a conviction as well. We are now including that we can enforce it through our MTI and bond bylaws, which is our bylaw notice, offense notice bylaw. And then the failure to comply, it provides the ability for the town to undertake anything that needs to be done to bring the parcel into compliance, and then we place the costs. If they're not paid before the end of the year, they get put onto their property taxes. And then we do have schedules under part 13. which, it has a hazardous condition requirement list, which lays out exactly what needs to be done. Then the certification form for us to provide that certification that they can re-enter. And then we do have a couple of do not enter or occupy notices for the building inspector, and then the water shut-off notice is also included in there. So between this bylaw and our good neighbor bylaw, we should be able to deal with vacant buildings as well as any issues or any buildings that we find to be a nuisance within our community, just to bring it a little bit safer. And I did include the controlled substance current bylaw for reference to you. And I'm not sure if you want me to let you know what the good neighbor bylaw defines as a vacant property or not. I can let you know that so that you're aware of that. I need 2 seconds here. So vacant buildings shall mean a building or structure which is without lawful residence or occupant, or which is not being put to a lawful commercial, residential, or industrial use for a continuous period of over 45 days within a consecutive 60-day period, or which may be unoccupied or unsecured, occupied and secured by boarding or other similar means. Unoccupied and deemed a nuisance or hazardous building or structure or no longer holds a valid building permit. So that covers quite a bit. So there are 3 options for council. You can support the staff recommendation, you can put conditions on it that you might feel appropriate, or you can refer it back for amendments by us. The recommendation of staff is that council give first, second, and third reading to the Town of Oliver Safe Premises Bylaw 1388, and that this bylaw be adopted by council at the November 12th, 2019 regular council meeting. Any questions?
I would like to say that I'm happy to see this come forward. It is something that Crime Prevention and Public Safety Committee was asking for. I know this bylaw is modeled very closely after Enderby's, and it has had some effect there. And the more tools we have to deal with some of these problematic properties, especially some of the vacant properties we have. There's not a lot of them in town here, but anything that we can have in our toolbox that can help us deal with these properties and give the residents that live next to them some comfort that we're able to do something about it, I think is a positive step. I know we talked at UBCM about some additional legislation potentially coming through that will give the RCMP a different authority to go in and inspect buildings when neighbors are complaining. I think anything that we do here is only going to make our town better. I will call for, if there's no further discussion or questions, look for a mover of the motion. Councillor Veintimilla, seconded by Councillor Schwarzenberger. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to correspondence, October 28th correspondence report, referred to the corporate officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. The correspondence report before council this evening has, for information only items. The first is a correspondence from the Village of Sidhu that is supporting the City of Enderby's motion regarding fostering transportation network services in small communities. And the second item is a policy directive from the Liquor Cannabis Regulation Branch announcing a change in their policy regarding what information cannabis retail store licenses are able to post on a website. The motion before council this evening is that the weekly correspondence listed in I-1 and that the October 28th weekly correspondence be received.
So
Moved. Second, Councillor Grace. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Reports, item Councillor Veintimilla.
That's me. Thank you. So on Thursday, October the 17th, I was at the Regional District for the day. And just during our council appointments earlier this afternoon, Tuesday, October the 22nd, I attended with most everyone here the Small Wheels BCAA and Parks and Rec ceremonies and groundbreaking at the Lions Park and then later at the Community Center. And that was a pretty fun afternoon to be a part of. The cheering and the singing and the dancing and the big loud machines hammering out the concrete. It was a pretty awesome show of community spirit, and I was happy to be involved. Friday, October the 25th, we attended a poppy pinning presentation with Legion members and other dignitaries down at the town hall, and then the meetings earlier today.
Thank you, Councillor Veintimilla. Councillor Schwarzenberger?
Thank you, Worship. Wednesday, October 16th, I attended Oliver Tourism Association meeting. Monday, October 21st, Parks and Rec meeting. Tuesday, October 22nd, with most everyone else at the Small Wheels Park demolition with BCAA, and there was 6 buses of BCAA employees that came there. They were having a retreat at Spirit Ridge, and apparently, Councillor Veintimilla told me this, they didn't know what they were coming to, and they got off the buses, and there was 100 of us cheering, and we went down to the Small Wheels Park and watched them start to take it apart, so that was a fun event. And Friday, I was also at the Legion poppy pinning ceremony in front of the cenotaph. And that's it for me, thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Schwarzenberger. Councillor Rice?
Thank you, Worship. Saturday, October 19th, I attended the Oliver Healthy Living Fair. So there were local vendors, businesses, and service organizations that are promoting healthy living for the residents of Oliver. So it's really nice to go see. Tuesday, October 22nd, also attended the Oliver Small Wheels Park Demolition Day. Enjoyed the community lunch and yeah, a great show of community spirit and support for that project. So it's really exciting. And today's meetings. That's my report.
Councillor Rice. Councillor Mattis?
Thank you, Your Worship. I spent the last 3 weeks on an extended holiday, and so I attended today's meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Mattis. For myself, I was also at the Small Wheels Demo Day. The only thing I can add is the traffic congestion we caused for 250 people to get across the street by the bridge. I phoned into an SOS South Okanagan Smoking Rural Healthcare meeting later in the day. On the 25th, I attended an entry warrant webinar and the poppy pinning ceremony shortly after that. That concludes my report. Upcoming meetings, the next meeting of council, regular meeting is Tuesday, November 12th. The next one after that is Monday, November 25th. Acting mayor schedule for October and November is Councillor Veintimilla. Question period. Public question period.